Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 16 for Monday, November 19th, 2018. My name is Joel Duggan, and joining me as always is my friend Johnny, but you may know him better as Pixel Riffs. Good day, sir.
Hello, episode 16. I keep thinking about these things in terms of Minecraft numbers because I'm thinking 16, that's a stack of ender pearls, that's a stack of eggs. You know, I keep looking for milestones like 32 and 64 and stuff, and we can have a half stack of episodes now. So yeah, we're really chugging along at this point.
Yeah, so where would we now? The annoying stack?
Yes.
That's where because like how annoying is it? I mean, I get ender pearls. I think it would be kind of OP to be able to carry around 64 ender pearls. But eggs?
Yeah,
really?
Eggs, snowballs are a particular offender, and it's getting to that time of year when real snowballs are starting to come out, judging by the photos I've seen from our friends over on the Northern Americas. But the 16 stack has always been a weird one, and it's also enough of a material that you don't want to throw it away, but you also have no space to store it. Like if I have 16 granite on me, I'm like, well, I may as well put that in a chest somewhere, but where's it gonna go?
Yeah, yeah. What other things are there limited stacks of? Is it just eggs and ender pearls? There's gonna be more than that.
I mean, there's stuff that you can only stack once, like soup and things, like only comes in like a single item. And all food in Minecraft used to be that way. Occasionally I go back and look at people who are playing in like the alpha and beta editions of Minecraft before it got the full release, and some of the maths was adjusted a little bit, but people are carrying around individual pork chops. Back in the day before the hunger system was implemented, and pork chops directly healed your health instead of refilling hunger and then that saturation thing refill your health. So it was a different system at the time, but I can't imagine like having to carry around individual pieces of beefsteak in my inventory along with all of the blocks, which I think then even stacked to 64. But at a certain point they must have thought, well, people are going to need to carry a lot more food if they're going to do anything ambitious in this game. Yeah. But
that actually sparks an idea for like a show topic down the road in terms of why the stacks in Minecraft are the way they are. Like actually researching a little bit of that. I'm curious now. But what have you been up to in Minecraft this week?
Eating a lot more food than just the individual steaks. I've been working on 3 different things, I suppose. I've got the Sky Factory series running on Twitch where I make my time lapses. I've been doing some landscaping in that, which is incredibly satisfying to watch just appear on a time lapse. But yeah, nice. I'm one of those people who likes to build stuff in Sky Factory instead of just do the tech progressions. So I got to a certain point in the tech progression where I'm now growing plants which give me dirt and stone, and using vast quantities of dirt and stone to basically create a landscape around the house that I originally built and the little factory where I've got all of the kind of resources coming from. So it's actually starting to look like Minecraft again. I remember somebody joking that like you start off with a tree and a block of dirt and you just have to build Minecraft from there. And that's pretty much what I've been doing in Sky Factory. So the time-lapse for that should be coming out later today or tomorrow, I think. On Decidedly Vanilla, I fought the Wither and died. I got overconfident with my first Wither battle. It went really well. And then I fought another one thinking, oh yeah, I can just breeze through a couple of these fights. And now I'm realizing why people get multiple Withers and they just kind of, do the cheesy way of spawning them under the bedrock portal in the end and killing them super easily, because when the Wither takes you out and all of your gear is then gone because it's blown it all up, it's blown up all the item entities that scatter when you die, it's just heartbreaking. Like I went back to that place, looked around for ages, and it was clear that the Wither had just obliterated all of my stuff, which was my Silk Touch gear, my mending armor, my elytra. I've got backups for all of this stuff, but it doesn't have all the same enchantments, and I can't get a Silk Touch book for the life of me right now, so that was a little bit heartbreaking. But I bounced back from that, and I'm now at the point in my survival guide series, my single player series, where we're just finding the stronghold. So that episode went up today, and that's been a lot of fun, kind of introducing people to the concept who may not be, familiar with the game and the fact that the stronghold exists and there's this whole other dimension to go to besides the overworld and the nether. So we're getting towards endgame in Survival Guide, after which the series is going to continue, but it's going to take on more of like a project-focused thing. We're going to be doing building projects and, working on getting massive resources, like resource farms, doing kind of shulker box-related stuff, a bit more redstone, that kind of thing.
Nice. I like that. I like your idea for the survival guide where it's like, well, here's the survival guide. Here's like the bare bones of the game and what you need to do and what stages you can you can do these things at, but then once it gets to a certain point, you can then turn it into, well, here's how you go farther with this game. Like, here's how, when you see someone that's building ginormous structures in survival Minecraft, here's the things that they did before they did that. You know, like they have, you know, a mob farm for bone meal so that they can grow as many trees as they want and have as much wood as they want. And like, I think that those kind of resource, especially building block farms, in a way are really cool to be able to communicate to new players. And I've been talking to some friends that are either like they play on the Citadel with me, or they're just talking about their experience with Minecraft and their other friends or family, specifically younger siblings. You know, my friend Megan that I do the Citadel Cafe with, her younger sister plays Minecraft, but she almost exclusively plays creative. Like she doesn't really play survival. She's been nosing around, and I've certainly recommended your survival series to her. But it's one of those things where like until they really get into it, they don't really spend a lot of time doing survival. So she might know about the end from just YouTube videos, but having never experienced in the game. I think having a survival guide about, you know, finding the end portal and doing all that kind of stuff is excellent. So I remind me of the terminology. It is a stronghold, right?
Yeah.
That's the building that's in the overworld, and is it end portal? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
The one that's over the lava?
And it's funny because everybody gets confused between strongholds and fortresses. Everyone calls the stronghold in the overworld a fortress, but the Nether is the one that has fortresses.
Yes, I do that. I've done that on camera before and then corrected myself.
Yeah, and I kept calling Eyes of Ender Ender Pearls in this one. So I'm like, I'm going to throw an Ender Pearl over here. And then I was like, no, wait, I'm going to throw an Eye of Ender over here to find my way to the stronghold. And yeah, getting confused with the terminology is so easy. And when you have Nether portals and End portals as well, they don't really have different names that way. They're both just portals. So I've definitely heard people call Nether portals End portals and vice versa. It gets a little bit confusing. But yeah, my whole philosophy with the survival guide is like, it's a guide. The first section is going to be a guide to how to survive in Minecraft, like how to actually do the kind of progression of things. And then after that, it's a guide to Minecraft survival mode, which is like everything else. Like your Hermitcraft is in survival mode, technically, and they're doing absurdly big stuff. I mean, the same with, you know, all of the big servers in SciCraft, and, you know, anybody you find playing survival Minecraft so often is going beyond what you would consider the basics of survival in Minecraft. So it's kind of passing that a little bit differently, kind of saying like, this is a guide to all of the stuff that is possible to do in survival mode, which is going to be a lot bigger of a, you know, an undertaking than just telling people how to get to the end, fight the dragon, maybe visit the end cities, and then ending it there. There's so much more to explore. And
it's funny the different things that people do in survival Minecraft as well, because I can't remember whether I mentioned this last week or not, so forgive me if I have. But Wells Knight has been releasing some world tour videos of friends.
Yeah.
And Fixit is one of the people that he's been visiting.
Realm of Vastin.
Realm of Vastin. I think this came out after we did the show last week. And their survival world is set up. It's very much a survival, but it's a team-based survival. So people are not going off and building their own bases. Not everybody has a mob farm. The server has one mob farm. I say one. The server, they build one mob farm at a time. Like they share all resources and stuff. But listening to Fixit speak about the philosophy of the server and how it works and how it is very different from what normally you see as survival multiplayer on YouTube. Was really interesting, and it was really cool to me to see the extent to which he pushes the game, and this is going to tie into our topic later, but also still feels very much survival, and also blows your mind because, well, one, he's not alone. So he's got a lot of help from people that help him build this stuff. And sometimes people aren't necessarily building. They're just like, some people just like to grind. So he's like, well, we've got a mine. Do you want to help us mine? And people just log on, mine, and then log out. Yeah. And so the builders have all the stuff they need. They don't have to go and grind for resources. But then the scale at which they are building things is, even a build team, it's still a huge, huge undertaking and accomplishment. I would highly recommend that people go and watch Wells Knight's tour series. While he's on vacation for Thanksgiving, he's posting all these world tours. Man, epic. Yeah. Epic stuff. Talk about inspiration. Like, go check out the Fixit Wells Knight episodes. There's 3 of them. It is just phenomenal.
It's funny because survival mode in Minecraft is really just a set of limitations on you. It's that you have to gather the resources, you are affected by gravity, you can't fly around, and you have hunger that needs to be managed, and occasionally monsters that you have to fight. But in terms of that, like that's basically it. You can still acquire everything that you could acquire in creative, except for maybe bedrock and end portal blocks. That's kind of the only real limitations. So your imagination can be the same. It's just applying it over a different set of parameters. And people who create stuff like that in survival are my heroes, because I love doing stuff in survival because it feels like more of an accomplishment to do it with those limitations than it is in creative, where your imagination can run wild, but you haven't put in any real efforts to make the blocks. Not to, poo-poo on creative players or anything, because the stuff they do is still incredible. But yeah, I like the survival Minecraft ethos, and I like the fact that people can struggle through the adversity of having to manage hunger and monster encounters and stuff like that and still build this incredible stuff. So yeah, I again, I double down on that recommendation. I think absolutely check that out. It's a testament to what can be accomplished with the right amount of organization and effort and creativity. It's really cool. Speaking of organization, effort, and creativity, what have you been doing this week in Minecraft?
Well, it's funny. I've been doing a lot of organizing. I haven't had a lot of playtime, so I've been logging in kind of like in the evenings and just, cleaning up chests or moving stuff, or like realizing, I actually only have 4 repeaters in my redstone box. I should probably like just craft a bunch of stuff, take 20 minutes and do that kind of stuff, so that when I do want to log in and stream or do want to play, I don't have to then go do that at some other time. I've had people ask me before, like, Joel, how come you have all of these like resources and stuff like that? And it's because, I have the advantage of working from home, but like earlier this year, I ended up with a foot injury, and I was like having to ice my foot every morning for like, 20 minutes before I did anything. I would spend that 20 minutes just icing my foot and playing Minecraft and just mining, like not really playing, just grinding for resources. And so I find that kind of getting organized in these little teeny windows when you don't really have enough time to get into a build, but you have enough time and you want to play for just a little bit, I find that really helps. But I've been continuing on with the streaming stuff that I started last week. I streamed for a little bit yesterday. It was both a forgetful and a lucky stream. I neglected to turn on the game audio until like the last 20 minutes of the 2-hour stream. So it's going to be very quiet for anybody that listens to it back, which is unfortunate, but I will probably just find some Minecraft music and maybe overlay it for the VOD. But I was disappointed because what had happened was I was breaking another portal, and I was teasing the chat room saying, are you guys ready for the most annoying and possibly loudest noise in the game, which is the destruction of another portal? And of course everybody said, like, we didn't hear anything.
What noise? Yeah. Oh man.
And what I was doing was I was cleaning up after all the work that I did the entire stream, and I thought, oh crap, there's one button that I didn't click before I started streaming. But I had a bunch of quality of life stuff. I have added a bunch of commands to Nightbot, and thank you very much, Pixelriffs, for the help on that.
No problem. It's something that you have to sort of learn by other people's example all the time. Like any time I add anything new to Nightbot, or my mods do, it's usually something that we've seen elsewhere that we're like, oh, that's pretty good. Let me steal that from you. And like I don't have any original ideas when it comes to Nightbot stuff. But
no, it's fine. I thought it was just good for moderation and like keeping spammy chat at bay and whatever. And I liked the automatic every 30 or 60 minutes it'll pump out like a link to your YouTube or whatever. So I changed those. My complaint about the timed stuff is that you can't, like, you can offset them, but it doesn't really work that way. Like if you want to have them spaced out, they tend to just like all clump up. It's an odd system. I wish that you could say, do this every 15 minutes, but don't start it until 45 minutes into the stream or something or whatever, which you can't quite do, or at least I don't know how to do. So I did that. I also, it goofed, and I have some real complaints about some of the Streamlabs widgets and how they act with OBS. It could be OBS. And to be clear, OBS for Mac, not Streamlabs OBS. So I have now a chat overlay, so the Twitch chat will show up on screen over the Minecraft play.
To give a bit of context to what you're saying when you're like,
context to what I'm
people.
saying. As I've been editing my stream replays and posting them up on YouTube, then I've realized that for the odd time that I don't repeat the statement or repeat the question before I answer it, that it helps to have kind of stuff pop up on the screen. And I have to say that I have a lovely chat room, so I'm not worried about, what people are saying, it's all pretty.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
don't have to
it's a big
worry
deal.
about profanity showing up in the middle of the video and
No.
stuff.
Well, all that kind of stuff is taken care of with the filters and Nightbot and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's also, I just have a bunch of nice people that watch me stream, so they're all super nice. But what I did on stream was more technical stuff. I've not had a lot of creative inspiration lately, so I moved a bunch of villagers. I want to have. I fixed the zombie spawner at some point off camera this week. And it's nothing big deal. It was just changing the water elevator from a 1.12 to a 1.13 water elevator. And so I'm going to be getting a lot of rotten flesh when I'm hanging around in my swamp base. And I want villagers to trade that rotten flesh with to have an epic amount of emeralds. I had moved some clerics. They died. I was annoyed. I rage quit. This was months ago. And so now I thought, a better idea rather than trying to move 3 more clerics to my base would be to just move 3 villagers and create my own breeder way over at my swamp base.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And I took the time, and I'm going to highly recommend that people do this. If you ever feel that you're going to be moving villagers around at any point in your Minecraft world, I put in a permanent villager train in the Nether. That goes from just off of the main Nether hub. I didn't put it in the Nether hub because, of course, the Nether hub's a pre-existing build and it looks very nice. And I didn't want to have like train tracks in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I have minecart rails that go the full length of the path to my swamp base portal. They are covered. It's got glass on one side. So for whatever reason, a villager stops, you can see where they are. And everything is enclosed by stone bricks and slabs. And so it's 100% secure. Nothing's going to light on fire. Like it's just totally safe for these villagers to go through on the minecarts. The only thing that you have to do from a, I guess, setup point of view is just you have to connect the rails from the start of the main covered protected track to the main portal, which is like 20 blocks. So, nether rack and some rails and you're fine. Because I've done this before where you build the whole track, you move the villagers, and you remove the whole track, and it's just like, ugh. So it worked out very well. I had already set aside 2 nitwits. I turned on the villager breeder in the meadows and let that go while we were moving everybody. And we ended up with 2 villagers being bred over the course of the 2-hour stream. One of them was a blacksmith who I sent to a retreat. And the other one was a nitwit who I quickly moved on to my base. So I've got 3 nitwits safely tucked away in the swamp base, ready for a villager breeder. So I'm very happy with the way that worked out. I got a lot done and a lot done correctly in a quick 2-hour stream. So it was great. I'm really enjoying the technical side of things right now.
Nice. I think that it's definitely a good idea to have a permanent rail system in the Nether as well, because it's something that you can use if you want to do a quick kind of bit of hands-free transport. And it's good to have that stuff, especially like you say, if it's kind of tucked away behind the scenes a little bit, so it's not interfering with your main Nether hub. Because there have been so many times when like I've been on a server where a Nether hub, the floor is all slabs, and then you have to build a rail through it, but then you can't put slabs down because then when you break them again, that means like reflooring the entire Nether hub basically. But then if you put a block on top of that you can put a rail on, then you're working at this weird 1.5 block height for the rail, and then you can't quite get on top of it when you need to, and it's just a pain. So building like a whole separate thing, like almost like the sort of servants' passages in a big kind of country house or something like that. Just
that's
somewhere that all of
this looks like.
The maintenance corridor can happen. Yeah, that's a neat idea. I might have to steal that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm thinking too, like for any kind of future Nether hub that might exist, it would be great if, like for my Nether hub has got a glass floor, so this wouldn't work for this particular one. But if you had a floored Nether hub where it's just, solid blocks, even if you just had that rail system underneath it and just a trap, couple of trap doors that you could quick, or a piston door that you could just open up, push the villager in his minecart, and then send them on their way. And then close that up. No one would ever know the difference. And then that completely enclosed, minecart system takes them wherever they need to go. And you only have to kind of nudge them 6 or 8 blocks out of the main portal. Like I've got some ideas for making a much more efficient Nether hub for people that want to move villagers around in the future, or even just materials. Like it's something that you could totally take advantage of, especially if they do eventually revamp the way that minecart rails work. Because I don't think they're really good for personal transport. I find them kind of slow. But speaking of technical stuff, we can probably move into the news, which is the snapshot that came out last week. Not Wednesday. It was released on Thursday, as far as I can recall. And that is 18W46A. And the lanterns that were teased were put in this snapshot. That's probably the biggest news from the day. And they have a bunch of other fixes, like blocks now have directional opacity, so slabs and stairs won't let light in from below, and will let light in from the sides. We actually touched on this a little bit last week on our lighting talk, so it's funny that this was fixed like just moments after we talked about it on the show.
Again, with us predicting stuff that's going to happen and like them releasing news about it immediately after we record a podcast. But people in our Discord were actually talking about this and saying this has implications for people who use things like slabs and stairs as viewing ports into spawners, because normally they would still completely enclose an area and block the light from it by building with slabs, but it was still possible to see if a spawner inside of a big box was working. And now it won't be as easy to do that, or at least you'll have to light a little bit further back in order for the spawner to operate at complete efficiency, because the slabs will now be able to let light through, and the same with stairs. I build stairs into the corners of each of the mob spawners that I do, because I always build them with a certain kind of design, just as a stylistic thing, but I won't be able to do that anymore, at least not with torches right up against the stairs, because then it's not going to be running as well, which is interesting. And it's strange, again, to see them mess around with some stuff that doesn't directly affect established gameplay mechanics. It's just the way players prefer to do things. It's not essential to the way we do things, but it does directly affect that stuff. This has the side effect, though, of fixing a really old bug, which has slabs and stairs not being lit correctly. And I feel like a lot of people must have seen this, where you'll put a slab down over a light source or something, you'll cover everything up, and the slab looks like it's glowing from below because of the way like the visual light comes through, but not necessarily the light data. So they don't let light through from below, but they appear to. And that is now fixed, as far as I know. Like, if I understand the bug report correctly, that's fixed in this snapshot. So it's going to be interesting to see if, again, people have used that for some sort of effect in a build that they no longer can. I definitely remember XB Crafted on the last season of Hermitcraft doing a floor in his woodland mansion that was all kind of glowing from below because of the lighting underneath it, but didn't necessarily have light down there. And some people might have used that as an effect. Alternatively, it's a way that you can now include slabs and stairs into, say, like, a wall that you want illumination to come from. You can put a block of glowstone behind it and only have a corner of that glowstone visible if you're using a stair block, but then the light will still come through because that's the side of it that is technically transparent. So, yeah, there are more options for building, even as some other options get taken away.
And I think also more predictive options is how I would, because I have experienced that bug, and I find it kind of annoying sometimes when you're putting stairs upside down and you want it to be dark or you want it to be light, and it's doing the opposite of what you are planning. So then you have to then add, or it creates a weird lighting glitch where it's like, well, I don't want the shadow on the stair to go sideways. That looks odd. And so that you have to light the build more than you want to in order to just like flood everything with light so that there are no shadows. And so I find that kind of stuff is always a little bit tricky and annoying. So I'm happy to see the change. I mean, again, you said it's kind of minor. And for anybody that's using them for viewing into mob spawners, like I would say just like create a small dark room and put carpet on the floor so that you can just go in and look, and it's not going to affect affect anything.
There's definitely ways around it, and I think like you say, this makes lighting more logical. It actually, like, if you can see a light, then it's on, and you can actually get the lighting effect from that. Whereas if it's completely concealed, you don't get the light. That's in terms of real world physics, that makes perfect sense. But it's one of those kind of quirky things that people have accepted as fact in Minecraft when it was actually a bug.
Yeah. Some of the other bullet points from the snapshot are that scaffolding now has a horizontal build distance of 6 blocks as opposed to 4, so that you can move things a little bit farther before you have to create another vertical tower to connect things, and that pillager AI changes beasts no longer spawn in pillager patrols. I don't know if that's a permanent change or not. That's one aspect of the snapshot that I did not explore. And out of weird habit, I don't usually explore. I tend to be looking more at the blocks and the functions and those things rather than the AI of mobs and stuff like that.
It typically requires you to play like half an hour of survival in order to really experience stuff like that. Like I did that when one of the first snapshots came out that included the pillagers, and that was also incidentally a snapshot where the mob spawning mechanics were slightly broken, so they were spawning much more than they should have. I went into a desert and was just completely surrounded by stuff. And I was like, oh, good. Oh, look, there's a pillager. I'm also running away from 7 other things at the same time, so I don't really have a chance to look at it, but it looks friendly. And then, I can I can see they're trying to tinker with the way Pillager AI works to get them ready for their primary kind of their advertised use, which is to raid villages. But I'm not certain quite where the beasts are going to come in. If beasts are only going to spawn near villages, or if it's just they're taking them out for now just because they don't want people who play survival in the snapshots for whatever reason to have their experience impacted by this virtually unkillable thing that keeps charging them and knocking them down every 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Some of the other things that I focused on with the new snapshot were the lanterns and checking out some of the new texture blocks. Now I know that you were really excited about lanterns last week. Well, we both were, but I picked up on the excitement from you. So did you have a chance to place one, look at one, mess around with any lanterns in the game, or are you just going off YouTube videos?
Yeah, I haven't, but I've seen a couple of streams. I raided my buddy Ectovink the other day. He's a guy who's played on various servers. I think he has a long-running single-player series now, but he was just messing around in creative with the lanterns and trying to work out little, lamppost designs and things like that. He found that they were great when attached to fences, and you can make up for the fact that you can't hang them from some transparent blocks like leaves and things like that by hanging a fence down from a tree, for example, and then just attaching a lantern to it as though it's either hanging down from a rope or there's like a branch of the tree coming out from the canopy, and then you attach the lantern to that. So they seem to be a little bit not quite inconsistent, but there's certain rules that apply to where you can place a lantern. You can hang it from the bottom of a hopper, as we saw in the original image of them that was posted on Twitter, but you can't place them on top of a hopper, maybe because the top of a hopper is meant to be something that you put things in, like it's not meant to be a solid surface. So
also the hitbox of a hopper is completely changed with 1.13.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see what rules apply to them and what things could potentially be tweaked between now and full release. But I've seen some fun designs out there. How about you? Have you been able to actually play with them?
Yeah, I have a quick little snapshot world that I just go in and just place things around just so I can actually see the block, move around the block, look at it in ways that I want to look at it. And I mean they look great. I didn't pick up on the fact that they're animated textures. It's really subtle. Right. But it's cool, and they're very attractive, just as we thought when we saw them in a screenshot last week. But they are a very attractive addition. I like the way that they look on top of a fence post. I like the fact that they give off more light than a torch. They're a full 15 versus 14.
Yeah.
So last week we talked about putting a torch on top of a fence post to try and make a torch look a little bit better, but then you lose yet another tick of light level. Whereas with the lantern, you're 15 at the lantern, you're 14 on the ground, and then 13, etc.
I haven't seen a crafting recipe for them. Is torches part of the recipe?
It is. It is a torch surrounded by iron nuggets.
Oh, interesting. I couldn't have called that.
Yeah.
I would have thought glass would be involved somewhere. But
I would have thought glass, and I would have thought sticks at some point. Like I was thinking. I'm glad that I knew iron would be involved, but I was thinking iron ingots.
Yeah,
so iron
like
nuggets make sense because the iron ingots, like considering what you crafted of iron ingots and how much you get out of it, the tiny little lantern, if it was using full iron ingots, I agree that it wouldn't really make sense. It would be kind of overkill.
Yeah.
They would also become very precious early game because if you don't have a lot of iron and you don't have an iron farm, you would not be able to put a lot of lanterns around.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas if you can get, what is it? I think you can put an iron ingot into your inventory and get a
nine nuggets. Yeah. It's like a bar of gold. And they didn't previously have any use. Like the only way of getting iron nuggets was to break down an iron bar or to smelt some iron armor that was or chain armor. And then you didn't have any use for them other than turning them back into iron ingots. So the fact that nuggets actually have a use now makes perfect sense. It's great. I like that as a
really
crafting
smart.
recipe.
Yeah, I think they might. I mean, not that the lantern is. I don't think this was necessarily the motivation for the lantern, but I think that they're kind of combing through some of the things that you get in the game and saying, okay, well, you can get this, but you can't do anything with it. That's not what we want. We want this to be something you can do something with.
Give me a use for poisonous potatoes and flint, and I will be a happy man, Mojang. Make it happen because I complain about this even on Sky Factory where they get used for modded recipes or you can compost poisonous potatoes. I still look at them and think, why are you in the game? You're just an inconvenience to me now.
Yes, yeah, it's the kind of thing that just fills up inventory that you don't want. So what I am disappointed with is that you still cannot place the lantern on a vertical surface, so the side of a block. You cannot yet. I say yet. I know you're listening, Mo Yang. I really hope that you can do this. Even if it involves combining a crafted lantern with an iron ingot to then be able to have a side lantern. Like, that's fine. I'm fine with it costing more, but I really wish that you could hang things, or that you could put them on the side of things. However, something that is really cool, and I have to give credit to an Exumavoid video that I watched for this, but the lantern, when it hangs from a block, does not touch the bottom of that block space. So what's really cool is that if you have a one high gap, you can either place the lantern on the block that's on the bottom or hang the lantern from the block that's on the top. It just depends on where you aim when you place the lantern. In terms of looking at a Minecraft block as if it's made of 16 pixels, then the bottom pixel is blank. It's empty in terms of the space that a hanging lantern takes up. There's more space above it when it's sitting on a flat surface. But I thought that was cool because that means that you can hang them in very tight spaces. And still have that look if you don't want them to be sitting on something. Or if you want them to be in a tight space, but then the block underneath them is a bush or something transparent that you can't put them on. Like, I didn't test to see if you could put them on glass, but you cannot put them on iron bars, which is disappointing. You can't hang them from iron bars. You can't hang them from end rods, although that makes sense because it would kind of redundant at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of other things that you... In terms of what you can and can't hang them from, it's the stuff that makes sense, like, leaves and things like that. Yeah. I'm surprised that there's no sticks in the crafting recipe. I was anticipating, a torch, sticks, and glass, and then metal of some kind. I'm happy about the nuggets, but I'm surprised that there's no glass. But again, like, nuggets around a torch, that's a very easy early game thing.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you have iron within the first sort of 5 to 10 minutes of survival if you know what you're doing, and then you can make lanterns from there. So no functionality like we said about like the dynamic lighting, holding up a lantern in front of you and lighting the area. I did think that was a little bit kind of far-fetched in terms of they're changing a lot about the lighting engine in order to let you do that. So it makes sense in a way, but it would also be another fun thing for lanterns to do besides just being a new light source. So I kind of hope that there might be some other practical use for them in future beyond just being another light source. But either way, they look very pleasant and I'm excited to use them.
Yeah. The other quick change to some of the new blocks are some new textures for things like the smithing table, the stonecutter, cartography table, and fletching table.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty simple.
I'd heard they planned to change the cartography table at least because it looked too much like a cake from the top. There were just kind of like the red dots leading to an X. Kind of, I think Jappa said on Twitter, like, it looks a little bit too much like a cake with it's got white icing and red dots on it, and that's basically a cake texture. So they're like, we want to make that slightly different.
I'm not entirely sure if they've knocked it out of the park. It's neat, but it does not necessarily feel Minecrafty. If that makes sense. There's a weird globe in the corner, which makes no sense. Like, it's not at all where you would have one of those things, or at least not that I've seen. So that sort of stuff feels a bit weird. I've noticed people not really understanding what this red and black thing is on the top of it. It's a compass.
Yeah.
I don't know why people aren't getting that it's a compass. They're like, there's this weird ink thing. It's like, no, it's a compass. I mean, it's a square. I get that it's not round, but it's one of those things where you might want to make that compass just a little bit bigger.
Everyone's too used to using Google Maps now. That's like, if it looked like Google Street View, maybe they would understand it. Young whippersnappers shakes fist at sky.
But the color of the cartography table has changed. So it is now dark oak. The fletching table is a lot more like birch. The undersides are specifically that. You can put them next to dark oak and birch, and they are virtually the same.
That's cool. Like the way the crafting table bottom texture is oak. That's neat. I like the fact that you can maybe conceal them in that way, or at least have them blend in with structures of that material set a little better. Yeah,
and they don't have any differences. Now, however... I thought one of them had a vertical... Oh, the cartography table. So on the bottom, they're the same. But on the side, one of the sides of the cartography table is dark oak, but it's vertical. The planks run vertically.
Right, so the lines are kind of north to south instead of east to west.
If you had enough of these things, then you could make a wall of vertical planks as opposed to horizontal, which, cool. I kind of want them to do that on all the tables. Like, if you're going to make them of all the different wood types, then giving a vertical face to a directional block. The difference, of course, is that the other side of that is going to have like either bows and arrows or
Yeah.
It's like if you've got it, but if you've got a deep enough wall, then it's not going to matter. It's kind of an interesting. It might be expensive, but it might be a fun accent or something like that.
Still no crafting recipes for these yet, are there? So
no
we don't know
crafting
what's
recipes, no
required for any
UI.
of them.
We don't know what's going on. No, well, they can't be crazy expensive. Like I feel like fletching table is probably going to have feather, string, and wood. Like I can't imagine it being too complicated. Cartography table, paper, iron. Smithing table definitely going to have some iron. That has got a completely overhauled texture. It looks like nothing else in the game.
Yeah,
It has,
I saw that. It's a lot darker metal kind of look.
Yep, wrought iron on the top of it. It has a reddish, kind of like a cherry wood, like a really dark red, maroon kind of side panels to it. Very clear, big mallet, big pincers, tongs. And then the bottom also has a unique texture. So it not only does it look cool as having yet another texture for, say, like a factory floor or something industrial or dark, and it also kind of looks like stone. Like you could pass it off as either or. It depends on what you would put next to it, I think. And then the bottom of it also has a unique texture. Neither one of them are seamless. I kind of wish the top was something that was connected. Like I'm okay with the bottom having a little frame, but I feel like it would be nice if the top did not have a square that ultimately looks like a checker pattern when you put 6 or 8 of them together.
Sure, yeah, something that would tile a little better, yeah.
Yeah, like kind of like how smooth stone just kind of blends together. It would be nice if it was tileable, but that is something that you may end up just seeing in texture packs. People might just like, no, I'm not completely re-overhauling it. I'm just going to change the edges of it so that it can be smooth next to one another.
Yeah.
That, however, may change the way that it looks when it's on its own. So I haven't messed around with anything like that. But that's it. That's kind of like there was a small snapshot this week.
Yeah, and there've been a couple of things that I spotted while I was browsing Reddit. Again, like with having done, Sky Factory and 2 other survival series this week, I haven't really had a chance to mess around in the snapshots myself, but I keep track of this stuff on Reddit and on YouTube occasionally. There was a really fun bug that I spotted people making note of on Reddit where end cities are spawning on the central island in Snapshot worlds. So some players visiting the end for the first time get instant access to shulkers. One of them even had a ship. They could get some elytra without even fighting the dragon. I think somebody even said the dragon just didn't spawn, which is clearly like just some weird problem. Some wires have got crossed somewhere when they've been implementing some of the new stuff, and end cities are just spawning in random locations. I mean, end city generation was bugged out when 1.13 launched as well. So there seems to have been, whatever they're doing right now is really affecting the end in strange ways, which, lore masters might just spin up a whole new set of, weird ideas about why that's happening, in world. But, in actuality, I think there's just some code that they're tinkering with here and there that is going to going to mess around with end generation a little bit. But I thought that was kind of fun. I also noticed the Stonecutter apparently has an animated texture now, I think, for the circular saw. I don't know if
It does. It's a good concept. I don't necessarily know if it's executed to the best of the way it could be.
Sure, yeah.
It looks a little funky. But they also may be limited by just the nature of trying to animate a round, circular saw.
Yeah, and the flatness of the texture as well, with it being
it's
a
a
plane.
2-frame animation, and there's a nice reflection on the blade that kind of wobbles, and that looks right. It's the teeth that when you rotate this particular animation, it changes the shape of the circle. And saws don't do that.
Yes, yeah. No,
or at least when they're spinning fast enough, they just look circular. They don't look like, you can't see the actual teeth when it's rotating.
It's gonna cut kind of wonky if it's looking like that.
So I feel like they might need to work on that. And I think also that the texture of the whole block has changed. I feel like it has different color corners now. Like it's a little bit. Got some wood
I believe
and
it was a little different, and they're working from it being an original block in the Pocket Edition version of the game to reworking it into this suite of tool blocks that they seem to have working on for all versions. And still very curious about what they're going to do, if they're going to have any impact on villages and that kind of thing. I was talking about that more in my stream the other day about how it would be cool if villagers were attracted to certain of those crafting stations, if that's what they turn out to be. And I really want to have some functionality to them so I can get to playing with whatever it is they do. But looks like we'll have to wait on that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of lanterns and light, we have some chunk mail this week that actually is a response to our show on light last week. And I was wondering if you would mind reading the email.
Absolutely. This comes from Platinum Jewel 2, so thank you very much for your email. It says, "Hi, Joel and Pix. Thanks for another amazing show. I found today's show, episode 15, very interesting, and I have an idea on how different colored light could be added into Minecraft. You said that you should be able to use glowstone dust to click on a block and make it a light source or glow, but I don't think this would work or it would be very difficult to implement." And as a side note, I agree, because having done this in mod packs before, I'm pretty sure, I think it was just the Carpenter's Blocks mod that like you could have a certain type of block that you could add glowstone to, and then you could skin it like an existing block, but you couldn't just go around, clicking glowstone everywhere. It was like very specific blocks that allowed you to do that. So it was a different system being applied to vanilla. But anyway, back to the email. So building on your idea, I think that as the Nether needs an overhaul anyway, it would be a good opportunity to introduce different colors of glowstone and potentially new biomes. So when you break the different glowstone types, it would give you different colors of glowstone dust. Then if you click on a light source with that color of glowstone dust, it would give off that color hue. And she wanted to ask, did I get the right terminology, Joel?
You did.
Good. This would help with the Nether and add more atmosphere to the game. Your tips in this episode have got me really inspired to mess around with lighting, and I have an awesome idea for a fiery Nether tunnel using different light colors. Thanks again, Platinum Jewel 2. So, thank you for that email. It's great to hear that we're inspiring people out there and that your Nether tunnel is going to look very cool at the end of this. I think it's widely acknowledged at this point that the Nether needs an update. It's what a lot of people expected them to announce for the 1.14 update. But I don't know how I feel about the idea of different colored glowstone. Maybe in these new biomes that you're suggesting it might work, but I feel like with the Nether as it is right now, it would look a little weird if there was suddenly a blue patch of glowstone or green, like some of the kind of cooler kind of color sort of color ranges in amongst all of those warm textures like the netherrack that we have now and lava and everything. So I don't know about having different colors of glowstone, but I was thinking about it and I like the idea of like they're all white light sources, but if they could be broken up into multiple colors, the way like a real world prism will refract light into a rainbow, or an RGB color space works when you're working in Photoshop or something. If you're, combining different colors in order to make white, then they could be broken down into different colors, and maybe, breaking a white light source like glowstone could give you different colors to apply to lights. I don't know. How do you feel about that one?
Well, I agree that I think if you're walking through the Nether and there's multiple colors of glowstone, while it would be interesting, it would definitely break the gloomy hellscape of the Nether if you've got like pink and blue and yellow and different colors like that. And like rainbow glowstone would feel like, hell for unicorns. Like really be really weird.
It'd be very strange. Something a little bit more suited to the Sky Dimension mods that I've seen, like the Ether would probably have stuff like that.
But I think, too, that there's something to, it is called Minecraft. So instead of silk touching glowstone, or because you get glowstone dust from witch drops, then you could potentially use the dyes in the game to change the color of existing glowstone to a color. Yeah. And then either craft glowstone of a specific color and have that affect the light that it generates. Or I like your idea of applying... Sorry, when I say your idea, I mean Platinum Jewel 2, of applying that dust to existing light sources. For example, the new lantern. Yeah. You could use red or green or blue glowstone dust to change the quote-unquote glass that's in the texture of the lantern, to change the lantern from a red lantern to a blue lantern, etc. It would be really pretty for things like, Chinese lantern builds and doing things like that. You could have some really interesting stuff. The build that comes to mind for me is the Bilbo Baggins 111th birthday.
yes, with all the lights kind of hanging off the
all
trees
the lights and stuff like that. Would be really cool.
And even with Christmas coming up as well, like, and various other festivals of light that happen in other religions. There is definitely scope for there being lots of lanterns around, lots of color and stuff like that. And so it's a nice idea to have kind of colored lighting in the game. And again, it's a very far-flung thing at the moment, but with them having recently overhauled the rendering engine in Minecraft, I know they have to work with people who maybe have older hardware and they don't want to prevent people from playing the game if they're playing on like an old iPad or something. So it might be a little taxing, but it's still something I would love to see in future. So who knows?
And even if like forget the coloring the actual light, but even as a stepping stone, to be able to dye glowstone dust and simply craft glowstone that has a different color. Like right now when you craft it, it's like a yellowy orange. It's very warm.
Yeah.
If you dyed the glowstone dust blue or green and you were able to craft a green glowstone, it would be awesome if it had a different texture. I wouldn't necessarily want them to just recolor the existing. But think about that as a way to have different colored light sources that you don't have to either hide them or, put stained glass in front of them. I think that would be kind of cool. The other thing that could be a possibility in terms of new biomes and stuff like that was maybe not necessarily new biomes in the Nether, but what if you could go to a swamp or go to a extreme hills biome, and in your mining efforts were able to find a different kind of glowstone, like green glowstone from the swamp, blue glowstone from extreme hills or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be kind of fun to have it not be exclusive to the Nether. Maybe it's not glowstone, maybe they come up with something new, but it would be cool to have another mineable resource that you could turn into a light source like glowstone that you could restrict. Like, don't have it be so OP that you can just get it everywhere, but like, no, if you want this green light source, you have to find a jungle or you have to find a swamp biome in order to get it. That would be kind of fun.
It's an idea I've seen thrown around elsewhere, is having more stuff that is influenced by what biome you're in the same way that leaf color is. You take, for example, like, oak leaves in plains look a very different color to oak leaves in a jungle. They'll, appear a much brighter green, or in a swamp, they'll kind of turn brown. In a mesa, they'll be very brown, this sort of dried out, kind of dead look. And I've seen people suggest that could happen with more things. So, for example, and to take a completely different example, actually, Simply Sark released a video a while back about how creepers could camouflage themselves depending on their environment, because a creeper is going to stand out as a very green creature against the more bluish tint to an extreme hills biome grass. Right. But, if it could camouflage itself a little better and turn slightly bluer, it would be a lot more effective as a surprise. It would kind of give them the element of surprise. And so, yeah, it could be possible to apply the same system to something like lanterns, where if you hang them up in a jungle, they have a very yellow kind of hue to them, depending on what kind of light you want the jungle to have. If you have a slightly colder feeling light in extreme hills, and especially if you're higher up, so the air would feel slightly thinner and the light might transmit in a different way. It would be interesting to see them do stuff like that. I get that also tends to, limit people's creativity in terms of transforming those biomes into what they want and making the extreme hills feel a little bit warmer by adding in warmer materials and light sources and things like that. So it's a bit of a, it can be a back and forth argument, that one. I'm not sure which side of the fence I sit, but interesting idea and a fun discussion. We've actually had another listener prompt our main discussion this week, which kind of feeds into the whole discussion about the snapshots and the new potentially crafting blocks that are being added, because a lot of people I've seen have been saying that those feel very modded in the way that it seems to be splitting up crafting into different crafting stations, the way that modded stuff tends to introduce its own crafting elements to make up for the fact that the crafting in vanilla Minecraft is very focused. So we had a topic idea that you managed to source from user 670, who says, "Hi Pixel Riffs and Joel, I'd like to hear what's your opinion on what is vanilla and what is not."
Yeah, so this came in as a much longer email. He was, or she was, recanting we'll say, debate that they were having online with what qualifies as vanilla and what is not. And the email is just a little bit too long to read on the show, but the too long didn't read version did prompt this idea, especially because I've been battling with this recently, just being newer to Minecraft than a lot of people out there. And the idea for me, in terms of when people are talking about modded and when people are talking about vanilla, for me, it's really about what's released from Mojang. Like, if it's in the release from Mojang, then I think, okay, that's vanilla.
Yeah, it's what you get in the box, as it were.
Yeah. When I think about modded, I think, okay, you've got to install Forge, or Spigot, or you're doing things like what you're doing in Sky Factory or Skyblock, or like Wells Nights, Nature's Beauty. I mean, these are all just things that I'm familiar with. I know there's a ton of more mods out there. I know that Iskall is playing Block Craft or Stone Block
Stone
or
Block,
something.
yeah.
Stone Block. And all these are just mod packs, collections of different mods that are out there and stuff like that. And I think where I draw the line is where, it's not something that affects the gameplay. It's, or sorry, it is something that affects the gameplay. Like you can do something like build a reactor or something that just does not exist in vanilla Minecraft. However, it starts to get a little bit foggy now that Mojang has released data packs as part of the game, which means that you can do custom craft recipes. Now, in some of my discussions with people in our Discord, who are very knowledgeable technical folks in some cases, which is fantastic, you can't create something from nothing in a data pack. If you are crafting, you can craft a block, like say make a crafting recipe for gravel, which does not exist in vanilla Minecraft. The crafting, the ability to craft gravel does not exist. However, the block exists. So you can't make up a new block in the data pack, but you can absolutely create recipes and be able to do things with blocks that you can't do in vanilla Minecraft. And that to me puts in this real kind of gray area. I don't necessarily consider that modded. Like a lot of times I'm looking at data packs, and in some examples, they're simply things that you think should be a toggleable option in the game, and it just isn't. So players are just like, I would really like the ability to turn off Enderman griefing. It's just a pain. It's not something that I enjoy in the game. It's just disruptive, and it doesn't really serve a purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it off. And that to me doesn't feel like cheating. It doesn't feel like it's a mod. It just feels like a switch that should be in the game that isn't. On the other hand, I also feel like, when you get into data packs where you can potentially have, crafting recipes for stairs, pump out as many stairs as you want.
Yeah.
Like that starts to get into, well, that's no longer just play creative if you want more stairs than you know what to do with. Like there's some things that I think are a little bit strange, and those are where it's going to be a matter of opinion. It's going to be subjective like that. There's no black and white as to what is or isn't vanilla when it comes to data packs that alter recipes. Like I think that's where I think a lot of debate and argument is probably going to happen. But I know that you have some thoughts on this because you've been playing Minecraft a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, and I've been around, and I think it was interesting to see when command blocks were the big thing before kind of data packs and functions, which were kind of the intermediary between command blocks and data packs now. People had a habit of referring to command blocks as if they weren't a vanilla thing. Because perhaps because they were capable of more than what you could do in basic survival or creative, they required some basic knowledge of command language, and you could do very advanced things with them. I've still seen some stuff that people do with a set of command blocks and a resource pack that is mind-blowing and turns Minecraft into a completely different game. But that is still, by the definition we've given it, stuff you can do with Minecraft out of the box. You're not installing anything new unless you consider copy pasting somebody's code that they've put online for something you can just copy paste into a command block, and it creates this whole module of command blocks inside your game. It's as though you're you're downloading some mods or DLC or something, except that is all stuff that it is possible for Minecraft to do in itself. In vanilla Minecraft, I think there is a distinction to be drawn between vanilla and default, and I might have had this this discussion before. This is something I saw.
Choice of words.
Something I saw XB Crafted mention when he was starting up a new series of Ark Survival Evolved, because that's a game where it can get incredibly grindy, and the default configuration for that makes it so that when you're taming a new dinosaur, it takes a very long time, making it perhaps a more realistic experience as far as realistically you can tame a dinosaur. But a lot of people don't like to wait around for that long, especially if they're making a YouTube series and they don't have like entire sort of half a day to put into taming one dinosaur. So he made the distinction that I'm playing vanilla Ark. It is unmodified. I haven't added anything new to it, but I've messed with the default configuration to, shorten the times it takes to tame a dinosaur. So by the same token, if you're messing with the default configuration by installing a data pack that maybe makes furnaces smelt faster, that kind of thing, that is not necessarily straying from vanilla, it is straying from default. The same could be said of resource packs as well, because there is a default resource pack, and then there are other resource packs that you can download that people have made online, or you can make your own, and you can radically change the way the game looks. You can turn it into a different game, but without the use of anything that you've necessarily had to download and install that, again, like has Forge to run it through and changes gameplay. You're changing aesthetics. It might make you play the game a little bit differently because you've got different aesthetics to look at. You might be building stuff differently to how you would in default Minecraft because the blocks look different, but it doesn't require any special installation. So I think that's where the line is drawn for me as well. It's if it's out of the box, and vanilla Minecraft can do extraordinary things. Like for a while, there were Reddit posts where people had done something extraordinary with data packs or with commands or functions, boasting 100% vanilla, no mods. I have done this crazy thing in the game. I've created this incredible boss battle with like the Herobrine kind of boss battle with like the Steve with glowing eyes, and he comes out and moves blocks around and tears up the earth and throws projectiles at you. None of it looks like anything that you can experience in default vanilla Minecraft, but it's all done with commands, so it's still vanilla.
Right.
It's a weird distinction. And as data packs and data-driven features bring us closer to be able to create mods within the framework Minecraft gives you, and say like now you've got Bedrock add-ons that allow players to add new mobs to the game, and there's a scripting API and other features, it's going to be interesting to see the lines blur between what is modded and what is vanilla, and how we make that distinction. Like, what do we start calling data pack driven Minecraft if it doesn't feel vanilla anymore?
Right. And I find that I see terms like that thrown around in some of the mods that are out there in terms of vanilla plus mods or vanilla plus mods, which I don't understand what the difference is between plus and plus. But
it's how far people feel like they have strayed from Mojang's light at that point.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it is just quality of life stuff, things that are in the game that you just wish worked a little bit differently, or things that are in creative that you wish were in vanilla, and it's obvious that they're in the game, but either for whatever reason, Mojang just hasn't gotten around to putting it in the game yet because their priorities are different, whatever that happens to be. I mentioned Exumavoid earlier in the show, and I want to give him a nod because of the work that him and some of the people that he works with have put into the vanilla tweaks website as part of his website. And you can get to that by going to exumavoid.com /vanilla tweaks. And I like the idea. I like the term tweaks. I think that's exactly it. It's very, very descriptive in a short way. It gives you the idea that it is vanilla, but with just a little bit of just a tweak. So it's not redoing anything. It's just saying like, no, we think this should be better. Like for example, getting 6 stairs instead of 4. That doesn't bother me, but if it bothers people enough, they might want to implement that. Having things like the ability for shellcores to drop 2 shells instead of maybe 1. The ability to what's another really one? Single player sleep. Stuff like that just improve quality of life for either multiplayer servers or even single player worlds. In terms of just crafting, being able to turn off Enderman or Ghast or Creeper Griefing individually, as if it was just a toggle in the menu. Stuff like that I think is really interesting and does not at all for me break the idea of vanilla Minecraft.
It's funny, there used to be a term for this kind of stuff, which was Game Mode 4. And there is actually a project called Game Mode 4. There's a wiki for it, although I think it's since been discontinued, or at least it's not updated anymore, where there were command block modules you could install that did stuff like that, made armor stands slightly more functional, improved certain things, made fire work a certain way. And there were all of these different things. I think like instant smelting ores, when you'd get a pickaxe with a certain enchantment, and you'd be able to instantly get iron ingots out of an iron ore block when you were mining, that kind of stuff. Like that was available as a set of command block modules you could install in your world, and it was called Game Mode 4 because it wasn't strictly vanilla or adventure or survival or anything like that. It was kind of like a halfway point between creative and survival, maybe. But you could argue that a lot of survival servers now operate on that kind of Game Mode 4 ethos, where you can just install a couple of data packs and have single player sleeping and have like modified crafting recipes and allow for different things and allow the dragon to drop elytra. You have loot tables that allow different things to drop, much better treasure if you want to. And data packs now operate that way for things you can't do in the vanilla game, and nobody has come up with a term for it yet. And I'm still wondering, are they going to change the terminology? And it has been funny seeing everyone's reaction to the new kind of functional blocks and saying like, oh hey, there's a blast furnace now. That feels like something from modded, and people are going to have to get out of that mentality because fairly soon it's going to be vanilla. Like once they figure out what these things are going to do, that's going to be vanilla Minecraft. And it's weird how we expect vanilla to evolve in very specific ways, but nobody can quite nail down what that is. It's like you said, when people are talking about vanilla plus or vanilla plus plus, what do they mean by that? It's they're trying to develop the game along the same sort of design philosophy, I guess, as vanilla Minecraft, like the stuff that they would expect to see develop in vanilla, but it just goes a certain way and has to be installed as a mod.
And I think some of the best mods and some of the mods that I find the most appealing, I haven't actually played, well, any really, but I haven't. The things that I find appealing to watch are the ones that don't stray too far from that ethos. They're the ones where the mod maker or the mod pack curator has taken the time to say, like, okay, if I was working at Mojang, from what I know and from what I know from my years of playing Minecraft, if I was to change the game in a way that I would want it to change, how would I do so that would align with the trajectory that the game has been on so far? And those are the things that I find the most appealing, is that they're not just like, I don't want to say cheating, but they're not just saying like, well, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it for like no reason.
For no additional cost or whatever,
Yeah. For example, like adding in extra crops, like new kinds of crops and new kinds of recipes. Doesn't really, I mean, I don't really grow that many crops anyway. All it does is just gives you some cool new stuff to grow and have fields of for different colors.
Yeah, and you can open a burger restaurant if you want to. Yeah. Pam's Harvest Craft or whatever,
Exactly. It's a real subtle, I say subtle, it's a complicated change from the back end, but it doesn't really affect how you play the core game. Like, it doesn't break Minecraft. It doesn't all of a sudden make things too easy or too hard. It's just like, well, there's more to do, and that's the kind of stuff that I find really interesting.
Yeah. And unless we forget, some of the features that we now take for granted in Minecraft were originally mods or parts of mods. Specific examples I've got for you. Pistons were originally in a mod, and this was way back. But they were a mod by somebody called Hippoplatymus. At least that's the username they went by. Horses were originally in the Mo Creatures mod by Dr. Jacques, who ended up actually working for Mojang and supplying the code that led to vanilla horses, which have now undergone a couple of changes to make them look slightly different, but are still based on that same code. And so it's interesting that modders have actually influenced the game in certain ways, and maybe they've seen the future of Minecraft before Minecraft has. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the future of vanilla and how much it starts to resemble modded and how much modded kind of shrinks into data pack stuff or branches out into its own whole thing. And we still have yet to get to an episode that's like firmly about certain types of mods, but we've skirted around it here and there. So I'm looking forward to exploring those in future.
And it's not like a practice that's unheard of. I'm unfortunately forgetting the terms for them, but there's lots of things that were in World of Warcraft that were folded in from either plugins or add-ons. I can't remember what they called them in terms of like quality of life stuff for managing inventory and things like that you could install into your Warcraft game that didn't necessarily affect the way that the game was played, but how it was organized, how easy it was to go through your inventory and all that kind of stuff. And eventually you started to see some of those modifications being folded into the Warcraft releases.
Sure, yeah. You come back 6 months later and they're all implemented.
Yeah, well, which is fine, because it's like, well, if it's something that, anecdotally or even data-driven, if they can tell, oh, out of our millions of users, more than half has got this one mod installed, then that's probably something that people want. Like if it's that popular, then why not put at least a version of it into the existing game? And hey, if it's not exactly what people want, they can just continue on using the mod. But if it is something that people want, then they don't have to bother. Like if it's implemented in a way that makes sense for everybody, that's like, oh sweet, I no longer have to use mod X. I can just use the new version of the game.
If only they would do that with Optifine. I think we'd all be happier.
You and me both, man. Do we consider Optifine a mod, just real quick before we move on?
Yes, but it's just so much of an integral part of vanilla to me at this point that there are definitely a lot of people who I feel they've said they can't play vanilla unless Optifine is released for a certain version, so they won't even like join a new version of Minecraft until Optifine has come out for it. which must have been heartbreaking at the beginning of 1.13 when, you know,
Yeah.
performance is really down. So everyone's like, we need Optifine, but it just took ages to come out because they had to rewrite from the new code base. So yeah, it's odd. It's one of those things that it's become so ubiquitous, and there's the first thing everybody suggests whenever anyone says, I've had performance issues with Minecraft. Everyone's just like, get Optifine, just install Optifine. And it's just part of the experience now. But anyway, I think we are running into the end of the podcast now. It's time to wrap up this episode. So you can find more things about the show and some links to all of the stuff we talked about today on thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you, listening to this at home, get some value out of the show, then maybe consider putting some value back in by visiting patreon.com/thespawnchunks and joining our community, where pledging at any level will get you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat and get us closer to turning one episode per month into a roundtable discussion with a rotating cast of guests, which is our next big patron milestone goal. We're currently at 30 patrons, 2 more, and we'll have half a stack.
Nice. Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us on the Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram, or recommend the show to a friend in person or via email or something. Everything in social media has an algorithm, and it just debates as to when it decides to share the things that you share. So telling somebody about the show actually goes a lot farther than you think. Email the show at thespawnchunks@gmail.com to share your thoughts on either new blocks, new snapshots, ideas for discussions, whatever you want. You can find the Spawn Chunks by name on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcatcher app. The RSS feed is on thespawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page.
My name is Pixel Riffs, and you can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where I have my Minecraft survival guide series for beginners, my Sky Factory time lapses, and my multiplayer Let's Play series Decidedly Vanilla. I'm also the voice for the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search, and I stream 3 days a week on Twitch, where these days I'm mostly working on my Sky Factory stuff and playing occasional other games from time to time. Aside from that, I'm at Pixel Riffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, how about you?
You can find everything I am doing online at joelduggan.com. That includes my illustration and design portfolio, links to additional work, and a brand spanking new online store for prints, original art, and artwork. 'Tis the holiday season coming around the corner, so if you're looking to do some stocking stuffers or some gifts, then check out joelduggan.com for some ideas. The Citadel Cafe is a podcast where I talk about sci-fi and geeky entertainment. The Comics Coast to Coast podcast is where I interview illustrators, creators, and animators, and you can find everything I'm doing on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram with just my name, Joel Duggan.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, and it smells faintly of vanilla.